What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us every Thursday for a discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I'm your host, Alex Van Aken, and today I am joined by Wesley LeBlanc, the news hound himself, the once and future Informer. Hello.
Hello. I'm back from a nice week-long vacation. I'm excited to talk about video games.
Did you go on a cruise?
I did, yeah.
I've never been on a cruise. How was it like?
They're really great. They're great for visiting places cheap because you get to go to multiple locations and it's all like pretty inclusive, like all inclusive or whatever, food and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, instead of flying to like Honduras and planning a whole trip there, you can just take a cruise and let them tell you what to do.
Did you like go dancing, see some comedy shows?
Yeah, we saw Hairspray on the ship.
Oh,
the Broadway show. Big fan.
Was John Travolta there?
No, I wish though. But the person who did play the mom was fantastic. Ice skating shows. Yeah, plenty of dancing. I gained like 8 pounds, I think. So a lot of eating.
Hell yeah. That'll do. When you have the all-inclusive, it's just...
At dinner, you can order. Every dinner, 3 appetizers, 2 entrees, 2 desserts.
Yeah,
like it
you just like matter. Sample.
Yeah. I wasn't sampling. I was destroying each of those.
Oh, hey, whatever. You're on vacation, man.
Yeah.
Rounding out the show this week is a very special guest. You might know him from Past the Controller. It's Brenden Groom. Hello, Brenden. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Alex. Hello, Wes. Thanks for having me. This is a honor. This is a pleasure. I'm now realizing that there's maybe a hole in cruise entertainment. We should be doing a Game Informer, residency on I don't know what cruise line.
I would love that.
just a nightly podcast.
Yeah, I would love that. I think like dozens of people would show up for that too. Like totally worth it for the cruise line.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at least 50 people. That would be great, I think.
Yeah, like you just put like video game show and people will show up. They won't know what it means and it'll just be some dudes talking in front of a mic and half of them will stay, half of them will go elsewhere. But
I mean, the best part is they have nowhere else to go. I mean, they have like a few other places to go.
Yeah, but like, you can't go anywhere.
We can lock the doors and really just kind of.
That's what I meant by that. Yeah, I meant we should lock them and actually turn it into a hostage situation if we were to get a cruise line residency. I think that's probably the best course of action. Thank you, Brenden, for bringing that great idea up. Brenden, if people don't know who you are, what you do, fill us in.
If you don't know who I am, it's probably for the better. But I run an independent video game podcast and website called Past the Controller, weekly show. We talk about everything under the video game sun. I try to play a lot of indie games and focus a lot of indie games when I can, just because they're pillars of our industry and they should be respected more, in my opinion. But that's kind of the gist of what I got going on. You can find me at Groom on the internet if that's a thing you want to do.
Yeah, at Begroom, BEGROOM, or pastthecontroller.com, right?
It's .io.
.io. They gotta standardize these things.
They really do.
And then you got the weirdos who are .co. It's like, just add the M, man.
Yeah.
Domain authority, who cares? Well, welcome to the show, Brenden. Me and you have been friends for years. We've been on panels together about indie games in the past. I've chopped it up with you and your crew a couple times now, so it only felt right to get you on. We were talking about Shovel Knight Dig this week, and you were one of the people that actually put me onto the game. And also, I know Wes has been playing it I think Wes, you're reviewing it for Game Informer, right?
Yes, yeah. Our review probably
so in progress.
I was away.
Yeah, how dare you take a vacation? So we're gonna be talking about Shovel Knight Dig today. We're gonna be talking about E3's return. HBO's The Last of Us getting in its first teaser trailer, and depending on our time, maybe more. But let's go ahead and get into the show. We'll start out with news. E3 we've kind of known that it's coming back. It was announced a couple months ago that ReedPop was taking over and they were going to be producing the show going forward, which is a good sign because if people aren't aware, ReedPop puts on a lot of shows. The ones I've been to have been the PAX shows, but they've kind of made their name at this point with running mostly successful shows. There's been some some stuff with the pandemic that happened, and somebody actually like died. Fanbyte actually had a really great report from Kenneth Shepard. I know that they are kind of going through a rough patch, but if you want to go, check that out, that is there on the internet. Again, this is what, week 2 post Fanbyte layoffs. Just want to again say, thank you to everybody over there at Fanbyte who was laid off for all the work they've done over the years. And I said this to several people, but I'll say it on the show. Fanbyte was one of those websites, and it's still around, to be clear. There are still a couple people working there, but it's definitely a shell of its former self. But that was one of those websites, that the very few websites where I routinely just type in fanbyte.com and would peruse the homepage, which is a rarity for me at this point. I feel like if I'm going to click into an article, it's typically somebody I follow shared something interesting. I click into it and go read it on the article and leave. Whereas Fanbyte was one of those like destination gaming websites for me, because you never knew what kind of weird stuff they were going to have on the website. And I don't know how we got into this. I guess I'm just kind of rambling, but so getting back to the talk of E3, it's coming back. We've got a write-up from GameInformer.com with all the details from Marcus Stewart wrote this up. Headline reads, E3 2023 dates announced. We'll have separate industry and public days. So that's the TLDR. It's coming back. It's coming to the Los Angeles Convention Center from Tuesday, June 13th through Friday, June 16th. There are going to be digital presentations, like the press conferences and all of that, held by first and third party publishers that are going to take place a few days prior, beginning on June 11th. Reading from the article, Marcus writes, the ESA also states that the show will feature separate admission days for industry professionals and the general public. E3 business days, designated for developers, publishers, and press/media, take place on June 13th through June 15th. Media registration opens this December. So from our point of view, I just got back from Gamescom a couple weeks ago. This is a welcome change, because my first Gamescom was this past August, and that's been the only trade show I've been to, at least in our industry, that had a dedicated business day, and it was such a lifesaver, and I felt like it made the whole thing way more enjoyable. I could knock out my really important appointments in the business section, and then you could venture off into the consumer area to see all the giant booths and everything like that. It was really great, and I think E3 taking this approach does a couple of great things. Number one, I think E3 for the longest time was a business only show. It's not like this has been a consumer focused show forever, and the business people were just being upset because they were inconvenienced. It was historically a business show that in recent years opened up to consumers, and kind of I feel like anecdotally kind of muddied the experience for both separate parties. The consumers weren't quite getting a show designed for consumers like PAX or Comic-Con, that kind of stuff. And the business people also weren't getting a show that was optimized for business stuff. And so it's kind of this weird muddying of the waters. And then of course the pandemic hit, and that's kind of all she wrote. Also there was those, the leaking of business emails, and a lot of people's, personal info got hacked. They kind of were just ESA was kind of taking punch after punch, and and then what we thought it was the end of E3 in the pandemic, and now it's coming back. But Wes, what do you think about this news? I think you and I share a similar perspective in that we've never been to an E3. My first E3 was going to be in 2020, and then
mine too.
The pandemic hit. Yeah, you too, Brenden. Yeah. So Wes, what are your thoughts on this news?
I'm really excited. Before I was even a part of this industry, E3 was just the goal, go to E3, be it a consumer or somebody working for a site. It's such a cool event, or it was in years past, and we kind of watched it fall out of grace, and then Jeff Keighley's Summer of Gaming kind of ate its lunch a bit, and now E3's back. And surprising myself, I'm just extremely excited. I was part of the group that was I don't know if E3 has a place anymore in this world with the way things go, and the second they were like, here's our dates, I'm like all in on E3. So I think I'm just excited to like finally
Forget everything I said.
Yeah, just excited to finally do the thing that I've wanted to do. I also think there's pros and cons to both. Jeff Keighley's event, kind of puts all the publishers and developers together in one conference. E3's, I imagine, is going to be like, days of old where PlayStation's going to have their own showcase, and then maybe Nintendo has their own thing, and different publishers do their own things. And I think that can be just as exciting as one giant conference. So I'm excited to see what 2023 looks like for E3.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I'm just like, I know that a lot of people are kind of jaded over E3. I'm right there with you. Like E3, even in like recent years where it was kind of like falling apart, from the outside looking in, it was still kind of that like, the Christmas in June sort of situation. Like, this is the time to be there. And the Game Awards have kind of also become that for the tail end of the year. What I'm more so curious about is how, Jeff Keighley, I think, is doubling down on Summer Game Fest. And I did go to that this year in person for the Summer Game Fest Play Days, which is a business-only event. It was 2 days, I believe, 2 or 3 days. I think it was 2, yeah. And it doesn't matter, semantics. That was really well put on. I was really impressed with it. It was much smaller. There was probably only a couple hundred people total there. Everything was by appointment only, but it was like very well designed, especially for like a first attempt at an in-person event by Jeff Keighley. Like, it felt like, okay, yeah, like next year, I think I'm like still looking forward to maybe Summer Game Fest more. I'm not sure, just because of how well it was put on this year. And it felt like more of a curated selection of like, there was some great indie games there that like these are games that I had not even heard of. Typically you go to E3, you see like, anecdotally, you see like these games that are like maybe being heralded by the larger publishers as like, hey, Tunic is here, come check out Tunic on Xbox. Whereas Summer Game Fest was like, oh, I played like Schlim, which is that like that game I saw on Twitter like a couple months ago and was like, this is really cool. Oh, and I get to play it at Summer Game Fest. Like, I don't even think people know what this game is, but it's here because I guess Jeff Keighley, had seen that game in his personal time, or one of his producers did, and they kind of it was much easier to just kind of pick them up and put them in the show versus having to go through much more red tape with these giant, larger companies. So that was cool, and I'm excited to see. I'm curious if like Keighley's gonna try to do his thing like before or after E3, he's gonna try to do it in the same window, because you've got all of these businesses and developers and press coming out for E3. It might be a tough sell to again get them all to then, a week later, days later, beforehand, I don't know, come and set up their booth at a new place again. Like, I feel like E3 has competition this year. SGF has competition this year. I'm very curious, because in the past, I would have just thought that SGF would be an extension of E3, right? Like, oh, here's Keighley's, Summer Game Fest Play Days at E3. And maybe that's the route they go, since ReedPop is producing the show. Maybe like they're a little more willing to work together. I'm not sure, but yeah. Any final thoughts, guys? Brenden, what do you think?
I kind of agree and echo with a lot of the things both of you had said about this. It was always a bummer when the pandemic hit, and it is like that thing you're looking forward to eventually, hopefully going to someday. And kind of for me, less than the game part of it and more of the networking and meeting, where all of these other professionals that you respect and read their work, watch their work, listen to their work, are going to be more so than like a PAX, which I love PAX, but I think PAX does something specifically different than what E3 does, just kind of by its DNA, which is a little more indie focused. Bigger news doesn't really come out of PAX and events like that usually. So it's interesting to see the spectacle potentially coming back, and that kind of hope of like, okay, maybe this can work again. Maybe we can do this. ReedPop has the background in running successful fan events, so maybe they can balance that scale for E3 and put on a good show that is both consumer and business industry focused. So looking forward to seeing what happens.
Cool. Well, let's move on to the second piece of news this week. HBO's The Last of Us got its first teaser trailer. Now, I feel like I want to hear from you two first. I know all of us here are fans of The Last of Us, and it's a great, important game. But I want to hear from you what you think about the series real quick, and then the trailer as well. Brenden, we can start with you.
So I am a late adopter to Last of Us. I never played the game back when it initially came out. I didn't play the remaster when it initially came out on PS4. But when part 2 was almost out, I was like, you know what? I'm going to finally play this game, and in the lead up to playing part 2. And I fell in love with the first game. I like the second game as well, but the first game really was just like, I can't believe I never played this game. Big fan of these games. Very, very happy this is getting a big budget show with a lot of attention, good actors and other people tied to working on the show. And also replaying the newest remake of part 1 right now. I really can't wait. The trailer and teaser and like all this stuff coming out about it, I personally don't care about the teasers or trailers because I know I like The Last of Us. Like, I just want it to be a good show, whether it does different things in the game, shows things we didn't see in the game. That stuff is irrelevant to me. I just want it to be a good show with good acting. Like, that's really what it boils down to me, because I think what I love about The Last of Us so much is that Joel and Ellie's chemistry in the Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, their performance, and a lot of other secondary characters in both of those games that have phenomenal performances as well. But those relationships are so good. That's what makes me think about The Last of Us. That's what makes me, come back. Yeah. So as long as, Pedro Pascal, and I forget the actress playing Ellie,
Bella Ramsey, or is that her Game of Thrones character name?
I think that's her Game of Thrones character name. Oh wait, no, her real name's that too.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
All right.
But yeah, if their performance is, it matches the game or is greater than the game, that will be where I am locked in on this show. But I am happy to see that, a video game adaptation is getting the HBO treatment. So hopefully it is up to our standards.
Oh, never. It's not Bella Ramsey. She's Lyanna Mormont in Game of Thrones.
That's right. Her real name's Bella Ramsey?
Her real name's Bella Ramsey, which I thought was, totally.
Probably because
so Bella Ramsey, Pedro Pascal, Wes, how about you? What do you think about the teaser trailer?
I just get more and more excited every time they put something out. I'm a little ready for the release date. I'm a little surprised that we did not get that because we already had a pretty good teaser recently, much shorter, but and they've said early 2023. So at this point, I'm like, okay, when is it? Am I watching this in January, February, or is this a right before spring starts kind of thing? But yeah, this teaser trailer and the one before it just really do it for me. I think especially Pedro Pascal, his Joel seems really good. That one clip of him saying you have no idea what loss is, it's just spot on. And Bella Ramsey's a great actress. She was in Game of Thrones, which is what I'm familiar with her of. And I think she's going to knock it out of the park as Ellie. I think she has a bit more of a challenge because Joel is, I feel pretty easy to emulate. It's kind of just a gruff older guy dad, whereas Ellie is Ashley Johnson. She's not, Ashley Johnson isn't really putting on a voice or anything. That just is her. So Bella Ramsey doesn't really, I don't know if she could just try to be Ashley Johnson. That'd be strange. But I'm excited. And the thing that gets me most excited about this is it's the entire game in one season, and the game is 10 to 12 hours. And if this HBO show is 10 to 12 episodes, I don't think we're going to get anything drawn out. I don't think they're going to add too much that might ruin, what the game is for fans. I think this is just going to be a really, really good and to the T video game adaptation. That's what I'm hoping it is.
I kind of am in the opposite camp. I wish it was different from the video game because watching the trailer, it looks really good. It's really well crafted. But then I just I'm well, I could just play the video game. And I know that's silly. But I feel the game to movie adaptation pipeline is different from the book to movie pipeline. When I read a book that I love, I'm really excited about the film adaptation, even if it's beat for beat, because up until that point, the imagery in my head exclusively lives in my head, right? And I get to see I get to see it acted out, right? I've seen that in the games. Like I've seen that beautiful imagery, especially in like the new part 1, the whatever. What are they? Is it a remake? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever
they call it a remake.
Yeah. The up-resed version. No, like it's already gorgeous, and like I have all of those connections with the characters. I feel like the game isn't that long as well to play myself, so it's like if it's beat for beat, I just like am kind of, I feel like I'm missing the point somewhere. And that might be a me thing, because I know a lot of people are really excited about this, but I'm just like, I wish it was a spinoff or like maybe like one specific part of the story that was like fleshed out, right? Maybe like explores more of the side characters or something, but like still kind of take place with the key events of the series. But I don't know, because I just feel, I've kind of have like this disconnect. I feel like it's harder to talk about too, because I haven't experienced this before. Because sure, the Assassin's Creed games, they made movies from those, and Sonic, but those aren't beat for beat remakes. But watching the trailers, like this is literally just like beat for beat, like seeing them in the pipes after they escape the city at the beginning of the game, with like the flashlights going through the pipes and like all the soldiers looking for them. Like, okay, that's like identical. And like just seeing all these moments, I'm like, I'm still looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really good. I guess I just don't know how I'm going to react to it, which is weird. Because there's usually just something slightly different about, these adaptations. And this just truly feels beat for beat. But maybe that's just maybe they just put that together in the teaser trailer. I would want like some small delineation, I would like them to have some sort of freedom, not anything like massive, but like I'd love to see, like I said, side characters maybe fleshed out a little more, or like maybe they left some stuff on the cutting room floor with the the narrative of the games. Maybe they could use that and put that into the show, because I know Naughty Dog's collaborating with the studio on this. So we'll see. It does look really well shot, really well acted. I think it's going to be, I'm excited to recommend this show, assuming it pans out, to people who I know wouldn't ever go and play The Last of Us. They might not have the patience to play a game, or maybe not the ability. Whereas I'm like, oh, go check out HBO, and they get to kind of see, what everybody loves about this story. So I think that'll be cool. But yeah, so still no date, like Wes said. I imagine, have they said if it's this year or next?
I think they said next year.
They said early 2023.
Okay. I'm interested to see more. The Road is, obviously inspiration for The Last of Us, but one of my favorite movies. So I'm always down to get, movies that are in the vein of this. I just know everything that's going to happen in this one.
Yeah.
That being said, I am really excited to see how they pull off Winter.
Yeah.
Because I think Winter is actually where they could do the most. There's a lot of adaptation there they could go with for Winter. Even because like in the game, that area is so foggy from all the snow. Like I feel like I don't even have like a solid idea in my head of like what that whole sequence looked like in the game, except for like the climax of Winter. Everything else, like I feel like I could watch again for the first time and like kind of be like, this seems familiar. I don't remember the beat for beat, but I think they'll have a lot more wiggle room in that area versus like things like the key moments like in the beginning with Sarah, and all of that are going to be kind of pretty things that I'm pretty well familiar with. But yeah, so I'm excited for it.
Did they say that this season of the show is supposed to be the entire story of the first game?
Yeah.
It almost feels like too much to put in. Like I feel like you could maybe, especially with the gaps in seasons and gaps in travel across where the whole game takes place, I feel like there are a lot of other things, not just filler stuff, but I feel like you could make interesting things that happen between Boston and Pennsylvania, et cetera. And then there's that whole other middle part of the country that they travel through, and we don't know what happens in those sections of the country. So, be interesting.
It'd be cool if maybe they took like an episode to explore that. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that's the news for the week. Let's move on to topic of the week. We're going to focus on Shovel Knight Dig. Now, some context. This is a spinoff from obviously the Shovel Knight series. It's a roguelite. It's kind of, if you've played Downwell before, You are perpetually going down in this game and trying to dig deeper and deeper underground to fight bad guys, fight, all sorts of mole knights down there. There's a bunch of knights down there that are bad, and they took your stuff and you need to get it back. That's kind of like the setup for the game. But on the top level, like similar to Shovel Knight, there's that overworld like town that you're kind of like building up as you go, it seems like, and as you dig deeper, more merchants will show up for you, and it feels very faithful to the Shovel Knight formula. But it's a roguelite. It is instead of left to right, like I said, it is up and down, and I am really digging it. I've always respected the Shovel Knight games and loved the characters, but I'm not a big side scroller guy myself, so I've never really like fallen in love with that series like other people have. But the spin-offs have been like an excellent way for me to, like Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon and Shovel Knight Dig. I love 2D puzzle games. I love roguelites. So now I get to enjoy like that vast roster of like really cool characters that have been built out, and some new ones as well. And yeah, I'm really digging it. But we'll go to US. I think you're further than me. I feel like I've put in like probably 8 hours at this point.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just bad at the game because I've only fought 2 bosses. Granted, I've beaten 2 bosses, but I've kind of just solely focused on 2 areas till I beat them. But I've made it to like 4 areas total. But where are you at in the game? How you liking it? You don't need to talk about your score or anything. I know you're still determining all of that. But what are your review impressions?
Yeah, I think I'm near the end. I've reached what I believe is the final area, like the lair where the big bad is. And there's mechanics in the game where you can kind of fast travel to those spots if you want. And I have that unlocked. So I think like another hour and I could roll credits. There's lots of secrets and stuff though. So I do plan to keep going back and finding more to unlock. I'm really, really enjoying it. More so as like a 2D platformer with like a unique spin and the dig mechanics, less so as a roguelike. I just don't think it's like really doing roguelite super well necessarily. Like
I would agree with that.
It's doing it competently. Like it's fine. You die, the things change, but like they have a shortcut mechanic, so I can just completely bypass kind of the whole purpose of a roguelite. Or I'm not really feeling like each run I'm becoming stronger or adding more to my arsenal necessarily. It feels like each run's very contained. And like when I die and I lose my gold, I don't think I've ever found my dropped loot once, or I just haven't looked for it because it just hasn't really mattered to me much.
Yeah, it just appears in those floating bags.
Yeah.
Like
okay. The ones that fly around with the wings.
Yeah, that's it.
I didn't even realize that was my loot. I just thought that was like, fun little grab bag.
Yeah, it'll like divvy up. It'll like take a percentage of your and then put it into 3 bags, a big one, a medium, and a small one.
But yeah, so like as a roguelite, I think it's fine. It's hasn't really proven itself needing to be a roguelite to me yet, but the game,
I agree.
The moment-to-moment gameplay is like really, really awesome. And it's a fun mechanic in 2D platforming, like having to dig your way through things. And they do a lot of fun twists with digging. Like sometimes you'll have to hit something multiple times just to get through it. There's pieces of dirt that like immediately crumble when you step on them. If you jump, your dude like automatically, kind of like Shovel Knight, does his little dig attack, and that brings you down. Like it's Yacht Club is doing Yacht Club really well in this game, and I'm really, really enjoying it. Excited to roll credits and see what other secrets there are to find. Oh, and the music is so good. So
it reminds me of Sonic.
Yeah,
and I granted, it's not like trying to go for that NES sort of soundscape. It's definitely like more of a, a 90s era game. It feels like, or like late 80s maybe. But yeah, the chip tunes and all that they actually sound like synth rather than chip tunes. Like it sounds like Sonic, like an actual soft or hardware synthesizer. And it's a really great soundtrack. I'm digging it. I agree with you. It's a weird, there aren't really too many, roguelike versus roguelite. It's like a weird mixture between the both because it's lacking a lot of the progression mechanics that are, popular in roguelites. You're not like upgrading your character over time to get better. You can upgrade, you can unlock shortcuts, and you have to pay money for that. but pay in-game currency, I should clarify, to get that. But that's even like, you could just kind of classify it as a roguelike at that point. I think the only like progression, cross-run progression is like bag upgrades, maybe. You can like upgrade your bag, and maybe I think there's an option to like swap your armor out and that kind of thing later on. I haven't unlocked that yet. But yeah, it feels a lot more like a roguelike, more like a Spelunky than a Hades, right? Where like the core aspect of your progression is your knowledge of the levels, rather than, oh, now I've got like 20% more health for this run. A lot of the upgrades that you get are run based. And like you can unlock like new type, like your cross, I guess like your meta progression is more so tied into unlocking relics that you now have the chance to come across in your runs. But it's not like, okay, I'm going to go in with this relic since I unlocked it. No, I might have a chance of coming across it now. And so it's a little more challenging, I think, because of that. But I'm really enjoying the base mechanics of, when you jump in the air, your shovel goes down and you are breaking whatever's below you. And that can be at your advantage. Sometimes you can screw yourself over. There's a certain like water level where certain secrets and like upgrades are locked behind these like gates that only are open if there is a current of water running through them. And if you break the sand blocks, you can change the flow of water and screw yourself out of getting like, and the gate will close and you can't get to the cool thing. There's a lot of really awesome little scenarios and rule sets that the game is playing with. And it's, for being a procedural game, like there's so many moments where I'm like, this feels like a handcrafted level. And it's kind of wild. Like the Lego blocks they're using to generate these levels are very well crafted themselves. I think that's, the rules are so consistent and precise that you do get these moments where it feels like a level designer sat down and just, I'm playing through this level that somebody made themselves. Like it's not procedural, but that's not the case. And I think that's really cool and a really strong aspect of the game. But Brenden, we'll go to you. How are you enjoying the game so far?
I'm loving it. So, I mean, full disclosure, I'm a Shovel Knight junkie. I love Shovel Knight. I think Shovel Knight, one of the most important indie games of all time, one of the best games of all time, but I digress. As someone who likes the idea of roguelites, I'm usually bad at those games. Like, I love Hades. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about Hades. I've never finished Hades, and I will probably never finish Hades because I am just not good enough, or don't have the time, or don't want to spend the time to sink into that game to level up enough in between runs to, make the game easier for myself. Where I feel like in this game, one of the biggest things I'm enjoying about it is that ability to skip forward. Because I was trying to think if there was another roguelike that I've played where you can unlock that ability to like start at a later point of the game.
I think you can in Spelunky, right?
Oh, maybe not. Maybe Spelunky.
Because I think if you make it through to the area like a couple times,
you can.
That guy comes and starts building the tunnel shortcut.
Okay, actually, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's pretty hard to unlock. I don't think it's pretty difficult to do.
Yeah, so like I'm enjoying that aspect of it because I think even baked into that because there's not a lot of in between run permanent progression other than like what you both had said about you can unlock relics that you can then potentially find later, or I think really the only permanent like upgrades are bag upgrades, the ability to change your armor out, which you have to also find those armor pieces. They will give you different types of buffs, but you have to unlock them first.
Yeah, is that through like fighting bosses? Or?
So
you got to get the armorer or smith, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's in one of the levels. You'll just find him, and then
I bet I know which level it is. It's probably the one that I have not been exploring, but the themes of that level would make a lot of sense for an armor smith to be there.
Yeah. There are a few different characters that you can come across within that will then join the camp up top.
Okay.
And that'll unlock the armor. And he'll give you hints to like where you can look for the armor, whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
Armor,
I like that. Yeah.
Blueprints, I guess.
Do you find that those make a big difference?
I have yet to find any of them. They give you rough hints of where to look for the secret, but I haven't been able to find them.
I just found my first one, and I'm like 6 or 7 hours in.
So I will say though, I like the more that I kind of just sit on this game and think about it, I really am enjoying it. I don't think it's necessarily, I think a lot of people praise the game like Hades because it did a lot of things that typically weren't found in a roguelite, and a lot of narrative things that typically, don't necessarily play key roles into the gameplay like that game did. And not that Shovel Knight needs to necessarily have something groundbreaking in the genre or whatnot, but I think for Yacht Club and Nitrome is the other studio working on this game, they do platforming very well. And this game is a very good platformer. When you take into account some of these other tweaks that they introduce into the gameplay for this specific game, Shovel Knight Dig, I think they all work really well in the Shovel Knight formula. Like, I feel like they make sense. They don't feel like they're alien concepts. They work within the bounds of the game. But one of the major differences that I enjoy about this game, when you compare it to the Treasure Trove games, which are the four, platforming Shovel Knight games, is that in the Treasure Trove games, it's all about precision platforming. Like, that is how you're going to separate yourself from being good or bad at the game, precision platforming. And you have the time in most scenarios in those levels to do that. But because this game, Shovel Knight Dig, that doesn't have a timer, but it does have, if you spend too long in a section, the big drill will come from above and one hit kill you. You have like sort of this kind of in my head, I need to keep going. Like, I can't think too much. I have to kind of make some quicker decision making in these small arenas. And I think that kind of moment to moment room gameplay works really well. So I've been enjoying that like kind of different approach to the same sort of, polished platforming experience. But I got this little bug in my head, like, gotta keep moving. I can't wait too long.
It's kind of, not to keep bringing up Spelunky, but I've been playing a lot of Spelunky lately. For a project, and the ghost in that game is kind of like the drill in this game. But what's cool about the drill is there's been a couple times where I've been one hit by it, but there is a way you can bounce on top of it.
Yes.
If you like, and like getting away by just the skin of my teeth in a couple scenarios. And you've got the drill coming down who can one shot you, and all these other enemies typically later in the stage. Like, it's even more chaotic. And if you make it out, you feel you're just like you're shaking. You're like, oh my God, like, how am I alive right now?
Yeah.
And then there's the boss fights, which are a lot of fun.
The boss fights are really good, but and for the ones I've done so far, they haven't really felt like Shovel Knight Dig boss fights. They're kind of just like Shovel Knight boss fights.
Yeah.
I haven't really felt compelled to like use like, or they're not set up like the rest of the game. It's just kind of like, okay, you're doing a Shovel Knight boss now, which are great, fantastic bosses. But I kind of wish they were using more of the go down dig mechanic stuff. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know how they would do that, but it would be cool if it was like, I almost think of like Tetris multiplayer, or like what if the boss had like was trying to like beat you somewhere and like you had to like compete with them, or maybe like in Celeste when Battlein will chase you. That could have been cool with like bosses as well. But yeah, so far you just kind of drop down into an arena and you just do your best to hit it, which is like not really, I don't know about y'all, I don't really hit all that much in the main levels. I kind of just rely on bouncing around.
Yes.
Occasionally I'll like swing my sword or my shovel, but for the most part I am just focused on platforming and killing things by jumping on their head a bunch. Well, cool. Well, that is Shovel Knight Dig. Head over to GameInformer.com to read the review when it's ready. Probably it's going up on Thursday. Review will be out soon.
Yeah, that day or Friday.
Yeah. And then we're going to try to get a video up as well. And then, Brenden, are you covering Shovel Knight Dig over on Pass the Controller?
I talked in depthly about it on our podcast last week, so you can look for that on wherever you listen to podcasts. I might write something up small about it. I don't know if it'll be like a full-fledged review, but it might just be some kind of specific things that I liked about the game that I kind of want to highlight again.
Cool. Well, again, go to passthecontroller.io to read and listen to all of that. Let's get into housekeeping before we wrap up the show with a couple listener questions. I know Wes needs to get out of here in a few. There is a hurricane boring down on Jacksonville where Wes is at. And we want to make sure he can handle all of his life stuff before that happens. So we will start off housekeeping, of course, with a podcast review. This week, we got a 5-star review from Kingsman116 over on Apple Podcasts. Now, if you want to leave a review yourself, we want to shout you out. Of course, leave an honest review. Try to be nice about it, even if you have something, some critique. I'm happy to take feedback, but of course, be respectful. But yeah, that really helps us out. If you have something to say about the podcast, hopefully positive, you can go and leave that over there, and it just gives us a little boost in our SEO power on the iTunes search results, that kind of thing. Also, some people genuinely want to read listener reviews, and so they might check out your review, and that might persuade them to listen to our show. So thank you, Kingsman116, for the 5-star review. It reads, "Always look forward to the Game Informer show." That is the subject line of the review. "Thank you guys for always providing authentic journalism in the field of gaming. I always look forward to the professionalism that GI brings to the industry's reporting. Alex Van Aken has been killing it as host." Thank you, Andrew. "And I especially love the playlist segment of the show each week. Keep up the good work, Andrew." Andrew, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your week to go and leave that review. It does help us out, and also makes us feel good. So thank you for the nice words, Andrew. We do appreciate it sincerely. I think we are caught up on listener reviews. So if you'd like to go and leave one for us to read off next week, you can do so over on Apple Podcasts, or you can rate the show on Spotify, I believe. I don't know if they've rolled out official reviews or not yet, but you can definitely rate us over there if that's where you prefer to listen. Some Game Informer news this week. Check out our Twitch streams, twitch.tv/Game Informer. Super Replay, I should say, is going strong on the Twitch channel. They are playing Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Now, some people have been asking where those episodes are at. We've kind of been with the transition of Reiner leaving the company and Matt Miller becoming editor-in-chief. There's obviously been a lot of transition, and people have been on trips and on vacation. It's been a little busy, but we are going to be uploading those replay episodes, those Super Replay episodes, I should clarify, every week over on our second YouTube channel. If you just search Game Informer shows, you'll find us. It looks like or you can just go to our main channel, youtube.com/Game Informer. If you go to the home page on our channel, you will see right below our featured video will be a link to our second channel. You can click that, make sure you're subscribed, and you can watch the Super Replay episodes there, as well as audio versions of the Game Informer show. So we're trying to make that our new home for like really long form, multi-hour things that we put out, especially like Twitch live stream archives, that kind of thing. So go over there, check that out. Of course, follow the crew here this week on social media. You can follow our guest, Brenden Groom, at BE Groom on social media, at BGroom, and follow Wes at LeBlanc Wes, LeBlancWes on Twitter and all that. Are you on Instagram, Wes?
Yeah, but I hate Instagram.
Okay, so Twitter.
I don't
there
really
you
use
go.
it.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at It's Van Aken, ITSVAN AKEN. Of course, go and listen to our other main podcast, All Things Nintendo. It's our weekly Nintendo podcast hosted by Brian Shea. It's always a good time. I hear great things. It's constantly, it's been growing a lot lately. So if you're out there listening to that show, thank you. We appreciate it. I know Shay appreciates it. And lastly, shout out to our audio editor, Matt Storm. They were on the podcast last week with me and Brian. You can go and listen to their shows, Fun and Games and Reignite, which is a Mass Effect podcast. Thank you, Matt, for editing the show this week. For me, it takes a lot of load off of me, helps me out a lot, and you make the show sound better. So thank you, Matt. Let's get into listener emails. Of course, if you would like to be a part of listener emails, you can email us podcast@gameinformer.com or leave a comment in the Discord in the Game Informer Show channel. Of course, if you want to join the Discord, link your Twitch account to your Discord account and subscribe to the Game Informer Twitch page just one time. You can use your Twitch Prime sub, whatever. That should allow you to get access. If you have any issues, I notice that people that subscribe with Twitch Prime, Twitch doesn't always, give them access. If you have proof that you subscribed with Twitch Prime in the past and you're trying to get in the Discord and you're having issues, email me, Alex Van Aken at gameinformer.com. You can reach out to me on social media, but sometime as of late, my DMs have been kind of full because we put out some job postings. There's just a lot of messages there that I've been having to go through. So your best bet is probably actually to email me about that, and I'll get you an invite if you just show me proof that you've subscribed one time. But this week's question, the first one, comes from Bob Buell. Good old Bob Buell asks, howdy game informants. Do you think your game of the year has already released this year? That's a good question. I feel like there are some heavy hitters coming this fall. I don't want to speak for anybody else here, but I'm curious, Brenden, has your game of the year already released this year? Do you think?
It's tough. I think there's maybe some things that could shake it up for me, but I think that I have played some games and I'm currently playing some games that I think may take that top spot for me when the dust settles.
Yeah. How about you, Wes?
Final Fantasy Origin Stranger of Paradise. Let's go, babe. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
It's probably going to be Elden Ring. There's maybe a few games that could knock it out, but I put 150 hours into Elden Ring. I still think about it. I still have a group chat with friends where all we do is talk about it. Like, it's just like the all-consuming game for me. So, like, I don't even know if God of War Ragnarok is going to even have a shot, which is weird to say because I loved 2018 God of War, but you know.
Yeah, it's right now it's still Elden Ring for me. Stray is up there actually pretty high for me. I'm looking at my GG app list that I have going. Yeah, Elden Ring, Stray, and Neon White are my top 3 right now.
Ooh, I still got to play Neon
Also,
White.
shout out to Kirby. Kirby is really
I was going to say no Kirby fans in here.
Kirby's currently number 4, but I haven't finished it, so that could change. I tell you what's on my list to finish playing this year. I've got it on my GG app right here. I need to play Rollerdrome. I really love the preview. I need to play Tinykin. I hear Immortality is
yeah,
a GOTY contender. And then Metal Hellsinger I need to play.
Yeah, you do.
And then when's Callisto out?
December,
I think this year. Yeah.
Something.
Whew.
Yeah.
Callisto and God of War, like it one of those could take it, but it's going to be pretty hard to dethrone Elden Ring from my number 1 spot. I like US, I think about the game a lot. I find myself like reading lore about it or just like watching people play it on Twitch or just thinking about starting another run.
I'm still
Like,
clicking
at least,
every
like-
article I see about it. If someone writes about Elden Ring,
Yeah.
I'm like, let's see what they found now.
Yeah. So that game was, and also like it was kind of like wasn't my foray into Souls games, but it's the one that has like totally captured my attention, and it's such a great open world game. It's up there with Breath of the Wild for me, for open world games, and honestly, just like Elden Ring is probably going to be one of my favorite games of all time. I kind of like was hesitant to say that after first playing it, just because you have like recency bias, and also like I like to ponder these things, but it's certainly one of the best games I've ever played. So it's going to be hard to dethrone that, but I wouldn't rule it out. Anything's possible.
Elden Ring was also my first, like I've dabbled in Souls games before, but I've never like really committed to, and this was clearly the only one I've ever finished. Elden Ring will be in my top, but it's not like, I don't have a lot of bad things really to say about that game at all. It's just not my type of game necessarily, certain parts of it.
It was really fun to watch you play it.
Yeah,
Discord.
I was enjoying my time with it. Like I'm happy. Like I'm shocked that I got through it as kind of quickly as I did. But I'll throw a couple of my names out there for games as well to put some names to faces. Kirby is up there for me. Elden Ring is definitely on my short list. I loved Pokemon Legends Arceus. That gameplay loop was so relaxing to me and just a very fun game. I dance with the idea in my head of going back to that and just kind of like doing side missions just because I missed that gameplay loop. And I know that though I'm excited for Scarlet and Violet, some of that gameplay, those mechanics are not going to be in that game most likely. So I'm kind of not looking forward to those things being not there. And then I don't know, the more I think about We Are OFK, that game is definitely on my short list. It is something special, something different. I think if you're down for a game that has no gameplay really whatsoever, but has a good, interesting story, fantastic music, good visuals, I think you should definitely check it out.
It's like a visual novel sort of thing.
Sort of. It's like a visual novel.
Less reading, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of the reading and stuff, a lot of voice acting, but a lot of the reading is text messages, which is you're choosing the responses. But I don't really think there's any pathways. Like, you're not changing the outcome of anything in the game by what you're choosing and stuff. I think it's just the form of interactivity that exists within this. It's not something I'd fully consider like a game, but it excels at what it's trying to do outside of its light gaming moments. I think those are the weakest parts of this project, but I think it's definitely worth checking out. I don't know how much you know about what it is, but it's basically like a biopic about this band.
Of the band, yeah.
I know.
Teddy Deaf.
Yes. I know. You mentioned Kenneth Shepard earlier. I think this might currently be his game of the year. I know he was also very, very high on this game. So
damn. Okay. Well, cool. Well, let's get to the next question. Troidal Power asks, regarding Shovel Knight Dig, have y'all tried it with touch controls in Apple Arcade? I did for about 30 seconds before I snapped on my backbone, which for people that don't know, that's a gaming controller that connects to your iPhone. Have y'all I have not, so I can't speak to it.
I haven't either. I didn't even know this was on Apple Arcade, to be honest.
The last time that I played touch controls on a game on Apple Arcade was probably Exit the Dungeon. I will probably never play touch control. I'm just not I lose control of where, like, I lose where the D-pad and buttons are supposed to be because there's no tactile feel. So
yeah, I can't answer that one. Sorry, Troidal. But shout out to Apple Arcade. I don't have a subscription anymore because I found I wasn't using it, and it was just kind of like going into, Apple's wallet, and I was like, I need that for my wallet, so I'm not going to have the subscription for a while. But that being said, that if that's the place you play it, I think Shovel Knight Dig is definitely worth checking out if Apple Arcade's the only place you can play it. Matt Storm asks, the accessibility options in Shovel Knight Dig are a game changer as far as approachability. What are some other games that have great accessibility options that you like? So I'm guessing Matt is talking about like actual accessibility options, and like, I don't know, I in certain games I'll turn on like auto pickup for loot, which is like technically an accessibility option, but it can make the game more approachable for everybody. Do you all have any good option or any good ideas on that?
I think notably, we talked about Last of Us this episode. Last of Us has, some fantastic. I think with Last of Us Part 2, it might have some of the best like in the industry for as far as accessibility. I know Forza Horizon does some pretty great strides to have great accessibility options. I think the biggest one for me is a game, like the biggest for me personally accessibility option that I like to see games implement is the ability to change the difficulty during the game. Like if you were to start the game off on hard, but then at some point you find it's too hard and you want to turn it down, but even if you want to turn it back up after, you can. I think that is a very important thing. So I will notably say I love the Ori games, but Ori, you set the game to a difficulty, you cannot change it, and it is terrible that they do that to you. That doesn't answer your question. I'm sorry, Matt.
Yeah, just to kind of echo that, I think Naughty Dog is, top of the class as far as accessibility goes. And I think they really prove with their options that accessibility is not just for disabled people, but it can be useful for everyone, which kind of goes to the whole point that accessibility is for everyone. I know in Last of Us Part 2, I used a ton of options. There's one where you can make it so like everything is kind of like grayscaled except collectibles, which are then like lit up on screen, which make trophy hunting easier for me, finding collectibles. Difficulty, like you mentioned, is awesome. Last of Us Part 1 has an option that I think is really, really awesome. They play dialogue through the DualSense controller using the haptics so that deaf players can hear or feel the delivery of the line through the vibration, so they can kind of feel that this line was delivered in a more, harsh way or a softer tone. Like that is like something I never would have thought of, and you can tell that they have like true experts there who are not only creating masterclass accessibility options, but like pushing the industry forward in that direction.
That's cool. Yeah, I think like any game with like a no fail mode is really cool, especially like even as just like somebody who sometimes I just want to play through and see a story in a game and not have to worrying about fighting. I know Polygon's Matty Myers had a really good article on Tunic and how it had, like, if I recall correctly, it has a no fail mode, and like allowed them to kind of more focus on the puzzles, if I recall. So go check out that article. I know it was on Polygon. Also, not an accessibility option, but I was playing Guitar Hero Arcade the other day in Madison, Wisconsin at an arcade bar. And I was playing the co-op mode. And in co-op mode, or like head-to-head mode, there is no fail state for missing notes. And I've been playing guitar for 15 years, maybe longer now. I'm pretty good at guitar in real life. I'm awful at Guitar Hero. I just have never been able to be good at that game. And my friend is like, can play every game on expert, like maybe some of them blindfolded. I don't know. He's a menace. But the head-to-head mode has no fail state. So it's just like score based. And I found that was like, I've kind of been developing a rhythm game of my own in my spare time. And that is like one thing that's kind of like top of my priority, is making a rhythm game that is satisfying for people who really care about high scores, but is also caters to people who hate failing at rhythm games. Like sometimes you just want to like play along to a song in a rhythm game. And yeah, Guitar Hero Arcade was just kind of like, it's like, man, what regular Guitar Hero should just be this. Like, just give me score based instead of like these fail states, because it's, I don't know, if I personally want to reset a song for missing a note, I can always do that myself, right? I don't know. It was like a light bulb moment for me. Like, why wasn't the series just defaulted to this, or like have that option? And maybe it does. I haven't played Guitar Hero, like normal Guitar Hero, in forever, but rhythm games should definitely take inspiration from that, because I felt like it was so much more enjoyable for it. We'll do one more question because I know we've gone over. Ooh, these are interesting.
I know. I was gonna say these are both good ones.
Do you guys have a pick? Groffles or Attack Corgi? I was leaning Attack Corgi, personally, but okay. Groffles, we will save your question for another time. An Attack Corgi asks, "What is your biggest F it I'm doing this moment?" So take that for whatever you will. F it, I'm doing this. I think mine is probably taking the job at Game Informer. That's the one that comes to mind. I'm sure there's been bigger F it, I'm doing this moments. Actually, when I moved from Virginia to Colorado, me nor my wife had a job lined up, and we just said, F it, we're moving. And we moved. We had no jobs lined up, and we stayed in a mutual friend's basement for 3 months and paid like $75 a week to stay in their bunk beds, and lived in this basement, and had like not that much money saved up, couple thousand, and we were just like, we'll figure it out, and moved across the country. And I haven't been back home to Virginia since, like living residency wise. So that worked out. That's actually probably my biggest effort I'm doing this moment, is just moving across the country. Really not a plan, because we had been really wanting to move to Colorado, and I had like tried. I had some like interviews. I spent like several $1,000s like interviewing remotely, and like I had to like fly out last minute for an interview in person. Didn't get the job. And I was like, I just spent $2,000 on this trip to try to move to Colorado. And then we just decided, let's not waste any more of our money. We'll just move and figure it out. How about y'all? I was hoping to give you a little more time. Wes, do you have one?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like the biggest one in my life, but it will tie back into the beginning of this episode. Me and my wife, when we got married in 2018, we went on a cruise for our honeymoon. And on a lot of cruises, they do like tons of game shows. And this one had like a love and marriage game show. So it was like basically everybody on the cruise packed into this theater. And you had to like audition to be on the show. And they only picked 3 couples. And to audition, you had to scream like Tarzan in front of everyone on the stage, and like call for your Jane, so I guess your spouse at that time, and then kiss them in front of everybody and get the crowd to love you so that you could go on stage. And so when I did that, I'm pretty shy generally. I'm like an introvert extrovert, so that was like a weird thing for me to do just by myself. But I just went up there and took off my shirt, slung it in the air, dipped my wife down, kissed her, and then I was on the show and embarrassed myself in front of so many people. The show is meant to embarrass the couples. It was highly embarrassing. Lots of very private questions being asked that are funny. And yeah, that was one of those moments where like brain just went out the window, and I was like, screw it, let's just do this.
Brenden, what about you?
I don't know. I feel like I have lots of bucket, or sorry, am I not supposed to swear on the show?
Oh no, you're all right.
Okay. I feel like I have a lot of those moments, like daily or definitely weekly, in all aspects of my life. So I guess I was searching for like what's an interesting one. So back in college, back in a prior life, I used to be really into music, and I'm still really into music, but I used to write a lot more in that way, and I rapped for a long time. And when I was in college, I was taking myself very seriously in that regard, and I was an English major.
I need links, by the way.
I can supply that.
I'll share old music of mine if you share me yours.
Okay, all right. So I was much more serious about trying to take that sort of aspect to where I wanted to move what direction I wanted to move my life in. And as an English major, did a lot of creative writing, advertising type business classes and stuff like that, on that side of things. But there was a class that I could have taken that I signed up for, and I did, which was like called vocal technique. And I was like, all right, I'm intrigued by what this description of this class is. Let me do it. Go there. The first day of class. So the class room for this class was also the theater at my college. So it wasn't even in a classroom, it was in a theater. So already I was like, all right, I'm digging what's going on. But I was also very nervous because I was like, the description for this classroom, not necessarily exactly what I'm here for, or like what I am into would apply to this. So I sat in the back, like all the way in the back, and everyone else was like very close to the front. And the professor went around and had everyone introduce themselves, talk about why they are there, and like what their musical focus is and track and all that stuff. So it goes through all these things, and incredibly impressive people there. People that have sung opera in Europe, people that like legit here for like a vocal technique class. And it finally gets to me, and throughout this whole process, it's like, do I just get up and leave this class? Like, it's the first day, I can just get a different class. Like, I can not do this. But as it got closer and closer to me, I was just like, F it. I'm here. I'm going to do this. So I stood up, and when it was my turn, I was just like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here, but I rap, and I care about music, and I care about like how my voice sounds and all these things, and like want all these things. And at the end of the class, the professor came up to me, and she was like, you better not drop this class. I want you to stay in this class, because I think that you're going to be surprised how much you learn from this class. And I think there's more to what's here and what you are than whatever. And it was one of my favorite classes ever. Like, the professor was fantastic. I had to sing multiple times on stage, and I think about that class often. So yeah, there's my biggest. If you ever feel like, here's my advice to you, listener out there in Game Informer land. If you ever think you don't belong somewhere, but it's what you're passionate about, you shouldn't leave.
That's a good way to end the show. That's a way better story than mine. Thank you, Brenden. Well, that's going to do it for the show this week. Of course, go and follow Brenden at BE Groom. Follow Wes at LeBlanc Wes, LeBlancWes. And you can follow me at It's Van Aken. We next couple of weeks are going to be kind of full of travel, but we should stay consistent on the uploads for the Game Informer show. They might be a little shorter, trying to keep it around 60 minutes. Just because we got a lot going on. A lot of people, have wearing different hats as of late. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for the show this week. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.